Welcome to the Self Care You podcast. I'm your host, Sharon, the number one self caregiver in the world. This podcast is the intersection of self care, advocacy, and compassion for self caregivers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so, for this episode, what we will talk about is life challenges. And one of the reasons that I want to talk about this is because I was having a conversation recently, and in the conversation, I can definitely understand like where the person was was coming from, and then also I can also see like who they were referring to. I can kind of always kind of see too. I would just kind of say that person's point of view. And, one thing about this thing that we call life, we never know what someone is going through. And I truly believe that when we're focused on our own self care, and part of that is given to others too. And by all means, I'm not saying, don't focus on yourself. And some people say, oh, well, your problems would disappear if you, give on to others or focus on others. That could be true for some, but then I also believe that part of the reason that some people are the way that we are, like when it comes to burnout, is because we can give, give, give. I've pretty much have been that person that I really hadn't always been a person, to be in need of receiving. Should I say not much? But what I realized when you don't receive over time, and especially if you give, 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 over time that does do something to you. Even though I um, definitely enjoy doing it, but it can be a burnout when you're not receiving over time. I'm going to put that piece in there. And so, in saying all of that, and just in experience in life, in that this is why we need self care. And for any of you all who have been following me for a while, again, there's four pillars of self care. That is self awareness, which that is the biggest part. I was about to say self reflection. That's included in that too. But it's self awareness, and it's self awareness again, self, yourself. What questions are you asking yourself? If you it's kind of almost like even if someone triggers you, because again, I'm talking about trigger. I'm not talking about someone is abusing you or is causing a discourse. I'm talking about more so if someone activates you, because they could be taking care of their own business, but because they're taking care of their business and they didn't let you know, then it's impacting you. So, what I was about to say is that what I truly believe, and in that, when you're focused on taking care of yourself, then you would not be influenced or impacted by others, even when it's directed towards you. You see how that works? Because half the time things are affecting people in an indirect way, meaning that someone is taking care of their business themselves. They didn't let you know, but it's impacting you because we're hardwired for connections, and sometimes we may think, oh, did I say anything, do I do anything? And half of the time it's not. When you really think about it, half of the time it's not. And even if it is a miscommunication, again, when you are taking care of yourself, then that helps you deal with that. Because if the other person is really taking care of themselves, again, when we're sitting down and we're truly reflecting, when we're not in our feelings about something, then you're able to kind of see things from the other person's point of view. Um, and, like when it comes to self-care, it is about, the exercising, the eating, the bubble baths, the chocolate cakes, and all of those other things. And when you need a break, but it's so much about you pouring into yourself so that you can give on to others and, live in your destiny and be able to be the wonderful person that you are. And but I really want to talk about life challenges. It is pretty much, I kind of just want to talk about different things that impacts us. And when we think about it in the daily basis, this is why we don't need to have other people's stuff on us and to be able to pretty much like move on. um Lately I've been listening a lot to Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher, and especially the podcast. Oh my, that podcast is, I'm like, whether you're in business or not, it really is the secret to success to life, not just in business, to life. And the one thing that I do like about the podcast is that they talk about real issues that come up. They're not just talking about, like the money and the entrepreneurship. They're talking about relationships, your inner being of what goes on, the things that people deal with. Like even when it comes to business, it's the interpersonal aspect. That's probably the best way to describe it, the interpersonal aspect of business. And so again, this is why that we need to pour into ourselves. And again, when I say self-care, it's every aspect of yourself. How do you manage? How do you deal with things? How do you self correct? How do you not take something personal? And especially, like even for me, being on social media, and having different opinions, when I'm voicing my opinion out there and how I look at things, and someone may not be in agreement with it, I may not be in agreement with someone else. And so part of it is that how much we want, things to, again, I just have this thing now, just this happiness thing. And when I say that, I look at life more so in joy. And I've always kind of done that. I probably have said, oh, I'm content. And some people are like, oh, that's not that high of a level. But I pretty much get it now. I think I may have foreseen some things when I was younger. But what I mean by that is that sometimes when I really have seen that, where sometimes some individuals can be on this happy trail, but completely ignoring that. And I'm not saying to focus on the negative. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying too, I'll say this. I'm going to say this. Is that what I've seen is that when challenges happen, people have a really hard time with it, especially for challenges. And I'm not going to even call them challenges. I just say differences, the way you may see something, the way someone else may see something. It's that people are bothered more by that than things that are directly towards them. And so when we're dealing with different people, we do tell people you can say no and you don't have to give an explanation. And so in saying that and practicing that, even though it can be nice, but sometimes people don't have the emotional capacity to be able to share. We never know where someone is. And so if you don't feel like it, you don't feel like it. If you don't want to, you don't want to. And now, in saying that, I am not saying that sometimes in life, even though like whatever decisions that you make, I just put it like this, there can be a reward and there can be a consequence for it, meaning that um like if you don't pay your bills, as adults, if we don't pay our bills, certain things will happen. As a kid, if you have a bicycle and you leave your bicycle out, it can get stolen or it can get hit. And so there are some natural consequences that come in life. And so, in saying that, it's like as a self care strategy, it's like, what are you doing to help you maneuver and move through all of those things so that you will not be emotionally touched? And then for individuals, who are, I would just say of the faith base, it's like that is the ultimate goal, is to be able to do this wonderful work without being affected, because we're going to be affected in some form or fashion. And so, all right, so I was looking for a list of life challenges, and I came across a website called Simplicable. Simplicable. Simple Able. And so they listed a whole lot of life challenges. And so I want to kind of put this in perspective. So, like, they have accidents for some people, getting older, ageism, addiction, bad bosses. So, how do you deal with the bad boss? I mean, I can definitely remember one time when I had one. Oh, yes. That was not easy. Your bad habits, bills is a life challenge, business failures, career changes or setbacks, conflict with others, criticism, bills, debt, demand on your time, meaning having a whole lot of stuff to do and not enough time, dishonesty. How do we deal with when we know? Let's say the facts come in. It's not just a one person reality against the other. When you feel that you're misunderstood, family problems. When you feel like things are not, like I said, you're not reaching your goals, fitting in, friendship, helping others, not achieving your goals. It has insults, and I would say that could be a perception thing. Not having the skills or abilities to do something. That's a fits, though. Of course, loss of a loved one. People who are mean. Again, how do we deal with that? Making friends. Going into a new environment. Overcoming negative emotions and negative thinking. Overuse of social media. Has it been triggered by social media, right? Decisions that are made that are not in your favor. Rejection, regrets. Ooh, dealing with rumors, things that people say about you that aren't true. Not meeting your goals. Having to prepare or study for long periods of time. Wasting time. Work conditions. Career change. Life situations. Life decisions. In a way, I believe. Yeah, that looks like I thought it was gonna be more. But let's see here. Being accepted or not being accepted, being able to appreciate others, or people are not appreciating you. Challenges at work, resolving issues. And pretty much what I wanted to do is just really just kind of just wanted to name a few things of just show you just how in one given moment, one given, it doesn't even have to be an entire day, that you are problem solving. And again, focus on your task, not someone else, because at the end of the day, when I say able body and mind and soul, in that people have their own assignments. I talked about that on Self Care U Nuggets. I don't think it was the podcast, but I probably have talked about that before. But this is why self care is so important, is so that you can have acknowledgement of these things, be able to reflect and have inquiry when something is just bothering you. And even when something's bothering you, the thing is, it may not even mean that it's true, even though your feelings and your emotions are so, so strong. It may not even mean that it's true, because someone can be looking across the moon, or I say the moon, because looking up the moon, looking across the room, and it looks like they're making eye contact with you, but they're not. You swear. I mean, there have been times that, someone can be talking and it look like they're looking exactly at me, because I'm like, they can't be talking to me because I don't even know this person. Who are they talking to? And then when you happen to look back or something, then you see, where their eyes may glaze over you, and it's somebody probably directly behind you, or just kind of behind side of you or something like that. um, and so, or someone can have a certain facial expression. Again, sometimes when it comes to you, the way that you may perceive something, sometimes it is us. This is kind of like where self care comes into action. It's like, what do I need to do? Why am I feeling this way? Is for you to go really deep within yourself and ask some questions of, why are you impacted on this? And so I gave you some of life challenges that we come against. And again, within an hour, most of the time, most of us are dealing with multiple things inside our head. Not that we're addressing all of those at the exact same time, but they're being addressed to a certain extent. But the ones that, of course, that's on the external side of us, that we need to, that's a priority that we need to address, then that's what we do. We address those things. And so, in saying that, meaning that, um, let's say we invited someone to a party and they didn't come, and so therefore, what do you focus on? Do you focus on the person who didn't come to the party? Even though I know sometimes it can have some meaning, depends on who the person is. Or do you focus on the ones that are there? It's almost the same thing like on social media, especially for those of you who are business owners, or who, really for anyone, but especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs and business owners, or content creators. Do you pay attention to the ones in which someone is making a negative, comment, or you look at the ones that, are really saying something good? Now, I do want to say, sometimes the ones that you may consider to be negative comments, there can be something where it's feedback of where you can grow. And see, this is where self-care comes into play. It is allow you to see it from that perspective now. And I would say to make discernment. You see how self-care works? It's that inner part of you. It's that part of you that has the wisdom to help to allow you to move. And there's so many, different mechanisms, shall I say, when it comes to life, when it comes to all of our lives, is that there's different parts of us. Everything is connected, and then things can be disconnected as well. So, in saying about the challenges, we know they exist at different levels. The thing is making a discernment of what is truly your challenge. That is where self care is about. And so, a couple of things that you can do in helping you to deal with some of the challenges. It's like, again, that self awareness, which is the first pillar of self care. And remember, there's four pillars of self care. Self awareness, that's the hugest part because it's every aspect of us. And then you have sitting in silence, deep rest, and movement and action. And with the last three, they really help you with the one of the self awareness. And remember, with self awareness is self inquiry, it's self reflection, it is being able to look deep within yourself. And sometimes it could be on the surface level, but most of the time, at some point, it needs to be much deeper than this. And so, in saying all of that, when you have, and again, we can call it life challenges. I just call it life because sometimes it's not a challenge, but it may be something that may activate, your, I like to say, your nervous system, disrupt your nervous system. It could be a distraction, but definitely something that makes us emotional. It could be something that hurt our feelings. And we want, like we all want to be liked, but let's get real. We don't like everyone, or at least we don't like what some, things that people do. However, we really do need to know and acknowledge that everything will not be in happiness 100%. Because if you believe that, and there's nothing wrong with going towards that, but just meaning this, like, oh, I had a stressful day. That's part of life sometimes, But the thing is that you have the power to set the tone of your day, though. It's like, really, was it really a stressful day? And I'm not saying it's not, because I've worked in some places that have been extremely stressful. This is part of the reason why this self care arena is here. And so, again, part of this is for you to have the discernment of what is a challenge or something that you need to address, and for you to kind of figure out where you can self correct. Again, when I say self correct, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong, but self correct meaning like, should your attention be going over there that it doesn't need to go there or doesn't need to go over here? Because when it's for a particular person, again, each person is, they need to address their own self-care. Because again, I really believe that when we address our own self-care, then we won't be bothered by other people eventually. Because you want to become unbothered. That's where that unbothered comes from. But it's a journey to get there for some. And I'm not quite there myself. Definitely closer, but not quite there. The other thing is, again, as you correct, you could say it's similar, but you make the adjustments, definitely make the adjustment. Because sometimes some people can think that they're self correcting, but they really hadn't made the adjustments completely either. So, whatever that is for you. And the other piece is the emotional regulation. That is where you can put something in its place. You may need, this allows you to reframe something, to rethink about something. Is this mine? because, again, someone may not want to come to the party for whatever reason, because sometimes we don't want to go to the party, you know? And there are times in which, you can let the person know, and then sometimes you don't. And so it is very, very, very important, in order for you to have success in life, is for you to be successful for yourself, through yourself, and to yourself. And so, meaning that you self correct when you feel that you have done, let's say that I'm saying, I was about to say done something wrong. Not exactly that done something wrong, but just meaning that your actions, your behaviors, even your emotions are not serving you. And so this is where you self correct. And then along the way, you make the adjustments of doing the things that need to be done so that you can have a more fulfilling life. And regulate your emotions, put things where they need to be. And again, in regulating your emotions, it doesn't mean that you're ignoring them, but it's kind of like, okay, is this really warranted of what I'm feeling? And acknowledge that there are some you really need to feel, but there are some that sometimes we may be putting too much on ourselves, or reading more into something that we don't need to read. And so, thank you for listening to this episode of Self Care You.